start today off with Steve Gillis.
David, Andy just told us that Alvarez will start his rehab assignment on Thursday. At this point, what are the benchmarks that you guys are going to need to see before you can activate him?
Probably the big thing with Alvy right now is just getting comfortable receiving the baseball. You can simulate what this is going to be like from a hitting perspective in the cage with velo machines. On the field with BP, which all you guys have seen, he's been doing quite well. The added complication here of a catcher with this injury is how is it going to feel receiving the baseball. So that's the hurdle, and we won't really know until he gets out there. But everything's going very well so far.
Is he going to need to use that brace while he's catching and playing?
Yes. Yep.
Andy, on the left.
David, in Philly, you said you still expect this team to make a run that has a run in it. Around that same time, Steve said he fully expects the team to make the playoffs. Has the passing of time and the results of the games done anything at all that impact your feeling about that today?
Look, we haven't played like a playoff team, and I think that's the reality of how we've played here through the first 50 games. That doesn't mean we won't, but we've got to show it. And I think we have a group of players that is very committed to that goal, that is determined to play better. But until we show it, it's a reasonable question.
Anthony?
How long is the runway for that in your eyes? Like, when do you need to sort of make a decision as to what you want to do or not do with this roster going forward?
I think the baseball calendar provides the roadmap for that, and so generally the trade deadline becomes an inflection point in the season, and we've got plenty of time before that.
Andy, and let's follow up on the timing thing. Having never seen you firsthand run a baseball operations department, at what point do you really start planning on trade deadlining strategy? Do you wait until very late July until you really feel like you need to choose a path, or what's your own sense of pace with that?
Throughout the month of July, you are preparing for the deadline and having conversations. I think every single year takes on a little bit of a different pace. Every single year takes on a little bit of a different character for a deadline, but throughout the month of July, you're preparing. You also don't need to make decisions until the end of the month. So we'll continue to evaluate where we are.
John?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the acquisitions you made in the winter, many of the one-year deals have generally panned out probably to your expectation. Severino, Bader, Minaya, Lopez. Many of the holdover stars have not really performed. Do you notice this? Do you expect more out of those guys that I'm talking? I mean, obviously who they are, Lindor, Diaz, etc. You have a higher expectation for them to perform?
I think they have higher expectations of themselves. These are players who have really quality and at times elite track records in this league. And at periods of the year, we have some guys who have struggled, and great players, top players fight through that. I think our guys will. And I think they would expect, and I would expect that when we look up at the end of the year, they're going to have seasons that more greatly resemble the types of players they've been throughout their careers.
Mark?
David, you said that every season kind of takes on its own pace. We've already seen the Marlins, sell and already. Has this season, has the talk started any earlier?
No, I think we're just past Memorial Day. I have not gotten the sense that those types of discussions are accelerating this year.
Jerry?
How concerned are you over the last 5 weeks the team's play?
Well, we haven't played well enough, and I think everyone associated with us would acknowledge that, and similarly acknowledge that we've continued to fight. I think our guys have continued to prepare very well and are doing what they can within their control to set themselves up for success. And as an organization, we're doing what we can to set them up for success, but we haven't won enough games. And we certainly recognize that that's going to need to change.
Well,
hey David, in the before this season, you and Steve have talked about wanting to be a consistent winner, not just this year and years beyond this year. In the big picture, I'm just curious, when you look at this organization, farm system, major league team, everything, is this closer or further away from being that compared compared to when you first took over or at the start of the year?
Yeah, that is our goal. There's no question our goal is to create an organization that is competing at a championship caliber level for a long time. And I think we continue to take steps towards that goal. We've seen players like Christian Scott really take steps forward in their development. And we're gonna need to have those types of development success stories to get there.
Man,
Kind of building off of that, you talked about the 45 game mark earlier in the season. At this point, what are some of the strengths, what are some of the weaknesses that you've identified? What are some areas that you want to improve with this team?
Yeah, I think throughout our team, more or less with every segment of our team, we've had periods of this year where we've played at very high levels, and we've had periods of this year that we haven't. And so I think as I look at our team as a whole, what we're seeking is more consistency. And we've had challenges at times during the course of the year of lining up all phases of our team at the same night. So we've had some really good starts where we haven't hit. We've had some days where we've strung together really competitive at-bats where we probably haven't pitched quite well enough, or where we've had defensive lapses that have cost us runs and ultimately cost us games. I'm not saying anything revelatory here, but we just need to play more consistent baseball in all facets of the game.
Tegan.
Following up on Andy's question about you saying in Philly that you believe this team has a run in it, do you still believe that this team is capable of that?
I do believe we're capable of that.
Based on what?
Based on the talent we have in our clubhouse and the belief that that group has in itself. But I also said in Philly, it doesn't matter what I think, we also have to go out and do it.
Dave.
Dave, as John suggested earlier, the majority of this team was in place before you came on board, a lot of the core members of it and stuff. How much does that impact what you're trying to do this time of year? I mean, I'm guessing that you know these players well enough at this point, or, you know, is there a way to put your own kind of imprint on the team moving forward? How do you view that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me at all whether players existed here before I got here or whether there were transactions that I made to get players here. I'm not looking to put my imprint on anything. I'm looking to help create an organization that's going to win a lot of games for a long time. And I think there were players that were here before I got here who are going to help us do that. And there are players that I brought in and will continue to bring in that hopefully should help the cause as well.
I guess along those same lines is, some people would suggest, you know, there was a franchise connection to players on the team that have been here, and I wonder if that factors into your decisions going forward. You know, you're trying to put together the best team possible. There are other things to it than maybe just the nuts and bolts of it.
No, I think that the guiding light on all of this is put together the best team possible. That's our goal as an organization, from ownership on down, and that's what we're gonna strive to do.
Abby.
How do you view Pete Alonso and his situation right now, a couple months ahead of the trade deadline?
Nothing's changed with Pete's situation. Our goal on a daily basis is to help Pete succeed as much as he possibly can so that we can win as many games as possible. And that's where I expect we'll continue to be.
Tony.
Just to follow up a little bit on some of the previous questions, this is a core, especially of the offensive players, that has been together for largely a half decade. They've made the playoffs once, did not advance. So what gives you confidence that this group is capable of that sort of run?
I think it's difficult to judge entire eras of baseball or entire seasons by one relatively small grouping of players. So I'm more focused on how can we put together an entirety of a team and really an entirety of an organization that allows us to compete for championships on an annual basis.
Well,
Hey David, what's your read on when Kodai Senga can return at this point, and how does his absence complicate things for the trade deadline discussion?
Yeah, I don't have a definitive time frame there. I wish I did. Clearly, any time frame I've given you guys earlier on this one, we've blown past. And so I'm not gonna speculate going forward. I do know he is working really hard, and our medical staff is working really hard to get him back out there as soon as possible. I can't tell you when that's gonna be. In terms of how it complicates things, I don't think it does. I think we have to look at the guys who are on the field and how we're playing as a unit, and go from there.
John?
Yeah, I've seen a defensive metric that has you ranked 29th out of 30 teams. Do you think that accurately reflects how well the team has played defensively? And do you think, I mean, looking at the names, it looks like it should be a decent defensive team, if not a good one?
I think there are, I'm not gonna say exactly where I think we rank, but I think there have certainly been times during the season where we have not been a good defensive team, and so that number doesn't necessarily surprise me. I think we've had players have very good individual defensive years so far this year in certain spots. And we've had some positions where we've really struggled. And so we have not played good enough defensively.
Civilian?
What do you make of Edwin Diaz's recent episodes?
I think Edwin's a really good pitcher, an elite level pitcher who's going through a rough patch. And I expect him to come out of it and bounce back just fine.
Tony again?
Regarding third base, how do you weigh wanting to give both of those younger guys opportunities with also, if each of them are only getting sparing opportunities, not giving them the best chance to succeed?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and there's no easy solution here. I do think we have two players who deserve to be in the big leagues, and that's why they're both here right now. I've also been consistent that this present roster construction cannot last in perpetuity. At some point, we're gonna have to get slightly more conventional. But we have two guys who I think have demonstrated they deserve to be in the big leagues, and so we're gonna ride with it when we can. And right now, I think it's best for their development to be here and get major league at bats. And I also understand at some point we're probably gonna have to get another middle infielder here.
Why is it best for the development to sort of be up here splitting time?
I think seeing major league pitching is helpful, and we all know that there is a gap right now between AAA and major league pitching, and just getting those reps against major league pitching, I think is beneficial for both those guys. And look, at some point we're gonna have to make some decisions on our roster.
Howie?
David, along those lines, is there concern that as they have reached this point, both Vientos and Beatty in their careers, can it be counterproductive to their development if either one has to go down? And what are the perils of them, in fact, having proven what they've proven in AAA, and yet potentially having to go back there? And what that can do to the long term?
It's unfortunately it's sort of the reality of roster constraints that we have. I'd love to keep both those guys in the big leagues and continue to give them both reps at the major league level. We also have to put together a roster that functions as best as it possibly can. I don't know that there are real perils in a player at this stage of their careers going back to AAA. I certainly think there are things that every player could work on, including at AAA, on both sides of the ball. And in some ways we can provide less pressurized opportunities for instruction in AAA. But you know, like I said earlier, ideally we get these guys seeing as much major league quality pitching as possible.
And acknowledging that players also represent currency, is their value enhanced? And it doesn't even have to be either of these two specifically, but generally guys in that position, is their value enhanced by potentially raking in AAA even after they've proven what they have down there, as opposed to playing sporadically and perhaps not as productively up here?
It's a good question. I think it's probably very player specific. And frankly, that question might be answered differently by different executives in different organizations in terms of how they're looking at a particular player. So I'd hesitate to make a hard and fast rule on that one in terms of whether players at a particular stage in their careers benefit more from an industry value perspective in AAA or at the big leagues.
In the back? Yep.
Me?
Yes.
Hi. The singer yesterday mentioned about frustration. He said, no, kind of like he knew, makes sense, gonna happen the secondary injury during the rehab process. So what was exactly happening and what was the communication issues there?
So I think Senga's just frustrated that he's not out there. I've talked to Senga a lot throughout this process. I think he wants this to move faster. Certainly we'd love for this to move faster as well. But the most important thing is getting him out there as a healthy pitcher, so he can pitch to the best of his capabilities. I think our communication has been really good throughout. He's been very communicative. I think we've been very communicative with him. So I think what he's expressed to me, at least, is that he's just frustrated. He's not out there, and he wants to pitch. And right now, unfortunately, he can't.
So why he has a secondary injury during the rehab process?
I don't think he really does have a secondary injury. I think this is he's experienced some soreness, and we're trying to get the soreness to calm down. But I don't know that we've really discovered a new injury here. I think this is as he was ramping up. He got some soreness, which can be somewhat commonplace as pitchers go through their recovery and get back to pitching in major league games.
Thank you.
Tisha?
Hey, David, just have the expanded playoffs change your decision-making on what it takes to get in as a contender, or are you still looking at the Mets sort of singularly on what they could be as a playoff team?
So the expanded playoffs certainly change what it takes to get in. I think how it changes how you look at a specific deadline is very situation specific in terms of the team. The goal obviously is not just to get in. You want to get in advance and have a run and play deep into October. So the evaluation ultimately is do we have a team that we believe is capable of doing it?
Dave?
As you try to make this run, David, what are the, I don't know, are there things you can sort of do, I guess? I mean, I guess it's wait for Alvarez to come back, it's kind of hopeful. The Diaz rebounds, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's answers in the minor leagues, per se. So is it kind of just riding it out and see what these guys can kind of, I know there's been some lineup shuffling along those ways, but, I mean, it seems like your hands are tied to some degree as far as.
I think what we're trying to focus on is just doing everything we can as an organization to construct a roster on a daily basis that gives our group the best chance to win that day. We've got a roster with a core set of players that are going to be on the roster, and that's not going to change. And so, in terms of levers we can pull. We're going to pull the ones at our disposal, recognizing the best thing we can do right now is support this group.
And last one for Tim.
Do you guys have a better sense of when Jet Williams will be back, or what he's up to right now?
So Jet is got a second cortisone injection, continuing his rehab process. Don't have a definitive time frame there. We'll probably know more there in the next week to 10 days to see how he responds to this.
What is the injury exactly with the wrist?
He's got, I'd have to get back to you on exactly what we're calling it, but he's got soreness in his wrist that has actually persisted since I think right after spring training.
Why was the second injection necessary?
Because the soreness didn't calm down.
Just because it didn't go away.
Yep.
But you're confident there's nothing more than just soreness going on there?
Look, when you're injecting because there's an injury you're trying to calm down. So if the second injection doesn't work, we're gonna have to look at what more we can do to help him.
Is surgery an option?
I think if the injections do not work, that's something that we would